Let's begin here, in this quiet room, with this solitary flame. Watch how it dances, alive yet ephemeral. A wisp of heat and light, born from wax and oxygen, destined to vanish. But what is it, truly? A chemical reaction, a symbol of hope, or something stranger? Long before laboratories or microscopes, humans gathered around fires and wondered, does the flame exist when we aren't here to see it? Ancient alchemists whispered that fire was the bridge between the material and the divine. They believed it carried secrets about the nature of reality, secrets we've since buried beneath equations and empiricism. But what if they were onto something? Consider the act of observation itself. When you stare into the flame, photons strike your retina, sending signals to your brain. Your mind constructs an image, yellow, wavering, bright. But what if that image isn't just a passive recording? What if your gaze, your attention, is an essential ingredient in the flame's existence? This is the heart of the observer's paradox. It asks, does reality persist when no one is looking? The question sounds absurd, yet it haunts the edges of science and philosophy. In the 17th century, René Descartes declared, "I think, therefore, I am." But what if the inverse is also true? I cease to think, therefore, it isn't? Let's travel deeper. Picture a forest at midnight. No hikers, no creatures, no wind. A single oak, ancient and gnarled, succumbs to rot and crashes to the earth. The impact shakes the ground, sends vibrations rippling through the air. But with no ears to hear, does the crash become a sound, or does it remain merely a pulse of silent energy? Science tells us sound waves exist independently of perception. Yet the paradox lingers. Without a mind to translate those waves into meaning, is the forest truly a forest? Or is it a void of raw, uninterpreted data? Here's where the forbidden experiment begins to take shape. Imagine a universe where every observer, every conscious being disappears. Stars still burn, planets still spin. But there's no one to name them, no one to measure their orbits. Do the laws of physics hold? Or does reality, untethered from observation, unravel like a forgotten dream? Quantum mechanics offers a clue. In the subatomic realm, particles exist in a haze of possibilities until measured. An electron is neither here nor there until an experiment forces it to choose. The physicist Erwin Schrödinger famously illustrated this with a thought experiment, a cat in a box, simultaneously alive and dead until observed. But what if we extend this logic beyond particles, beyond cats, to everything? The flame on this table is a humble example. When you close your eyes, its light no longer reaches your mind, yet you assume it burns on. But what if your assumption is wrong? What if the flame needs your belief, your silent, ceaseless participation to sustain itself? This isn't mysticism. It's a radical interpretation of quantum theory, that reality is a shared hallucination, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of the chaos. The ancients feared this idea. Myths warn against peering too closely at the machinery of existence. The Greek tale of Orpheus forbade him from looking back at Eurydice as he led her from the underworld, a metaphor perhaps for the fragility of reality when scrutiny breaks the spell. Even the biblical tree of knowledge carried a curse. To see the world as it truly is risks exile from innocence. But let's return to the flame. Blow it out. The room darkens. Yet in your mind, its afterimage lingers, a ghost of what once was. Is that ghost any less real? If you can remember the flame, does it still exist somewhere? The philosopher George Berkeley argued that objects only persist because God perceives them eternally. Remove the divine observer and the cosmos winks out. Atheists scoff, but the quantum realm echoes Berkeley's intuition. Without observation, does the universe default to a dormant state, a cosmic save file awaiting a player? This is the forbidden question. To ask it is to risk vertigo. Yet here we are, circling the flame, daring to wonder, are we the creators or the created? The dreamers or the dream? As the wax pools and the flame dwindles, remember this: every experiment begins with a question. But some questions are matches struck in a room full of gunpowder. Tread softly. Let us step closer to the edge. Here, in this realm of half-light, we encounter a mystery that defies intuition, a mirror that does not reflect, but defines. In the early 20th century, physicists peered into the heart of matter and found not certainty, but a labyrinth of maybes. Particles, they learned, are not tiny billiard balls, but spectral entities that exist everywhere and nowhere until pinned down by a watching eye. Consider the double-slit experiment, a simple setup that shattered our classical worldview. Fire a photon at a barrier with two slits and it behaves like a wave, passing through both openings simultaneously, weaving an interference pattern on the screen behind. But place a detector to observe which slit it travels through, and the photon collapses into a particle, marching resolutely through one path. The act of measurement, it seems, forces the universe to make a choice. What are we, then, when we peer into this quantum mirror? Are we scientists or sorcerers? John Wheeler, a physicist who danced on the edge of paradox, took this further. He imagined a delayed choice experiment. What if we wait until after a photon has passed through the slits to decide whether to observe its path? Astonishingly, the results suggest the photon's past behavior changes retroactively. It's as though the universe revises its own history to align with our present curiosity. The present writes the past, a sculptor, molding clay that has already dried. But let us venture deeper. Imagine a hall of mirrors, infinite and recursive. Each reflection shows a version of reality contingent on a question. What if no one is here to look? Remove the observer and the mirrors grow cloudy. The photon becomes a wave again, yes, but waves of what? Without a mind to translate their ripples into meaning, do they dissolve into mathematical abstraction? A symphony without ears, a painting without eyes. Here lies the forbidden experiment. It asks, what if we silence all observation? Not just human, but mechanical. No detectors, no cameras, no minds to interpret data. Would the universe, stripped of its audience, cease to perform? Or would it continue indifferent, its quantum dice rolling in the dark? The mirror analogy sharpens the stakes. Gaze into a looking glass, and your reflection meets you. Now imagine that reflection is not a copy, but a negotiation. The glass does not merely show you, it creates you in that moment through the act of looking. Shatter the mirror, and the infinite possibilities of your image scatter into shards. But what if the mirror itself never existed? What if all reflections, all realities, were contingent on the first act of attention? Philosophers have long toyed with this notion. Idealism posits that reality is mental, a construct of consciousness. Solipsism takes it to an extreme. Only your mind exists. But quantum theory offers a middle ground. Perhaps reality is a collaborative act, a cosmic game of make-believe sustained by countless observers, human, animal, even artificial. Remove one player and the game continues. Remove all, and the board itself vanishes. Yet the experiment is forbidden for a reason. Ancient cultures intuited this danger. The Hindu concept of Maya teaches that the material world is an illusion, but to pierce the veil recklessly is to risk madness. In Norse myth, Odin sacrificed an eye for wisdom, a warning that some truths demand too high a price. What if performing this experiment, this erasure of observation, unstitches not just a photon's path, but the fabric of cause and effect? Picture a child building a sandcastle at low tide. She sculpts turrets and moats, knowing the waves will eventually reclaim them. But what if her absence, her decision to never return, does more than let the sea erase her work? What if the castle's entire existence, from the first grain to the final collapse, hinges on her fleeting attention? The quantum realm suggests this is not fantasy, but a latent truth. We circle back to the mirror. If all reality is a reflection, then the forbidden experiment is the act of turning away. But here's the twist. We cannot know what happens when we do. To test it is to annihilate the very framework of knowledge. The experiment is a paradox, a question that consumes itself. So we stand here in this misty limbo, tracing the edges of the unthinkable. The quantum mirror does not answer. It only asks, in a voice as quiet as entropy, "What do you see?" And in the silence between breaths, we realize we are not just the observers, we are the question. Let us wander now into a place where all stories are kept, a library without librarians. Each book here holds a universe, the cry of a newborn, the collapse of a dynasty, the slow dance of galaxies. But tonight we conduct an experiment. We extinguish the lamps. We silence the clocks. We erase every witness, every conscious mind, every machine, every creature that ever wondered why. Now in this perfect void of observation, what remains? Imagine a single book on a shelf. Its pages detail a life you've never lived, a first kiss, a betrayal, a quiet death. Without a reader, do those words still mean? Or do they revert? To ink and pulp, their narrative potential frozen like a paused film. This is the unobserved library. An archive of maybes waiting for a mind to animate them. Quantum theory whispers that particles exist in superposition until measured. An electron, spinning both left and right, a cat neither alive nor dead. But what of macro-reality? If a falling tree requires an observer to become a sound, does a galaxy require a witness to become a story? The library's silence suggests yes. Without readers, the books are mere artifacts, their tales trapped in quantum limbo, neither told nor untold, like seeds never watered. Consider the Fermi paradox again. The universe is ancient, vast, and fertile. So where are the alien civilizations? One chilling answer: they performed this experiment. They built machines to silence all observation, to see if reality would persist. And it didn't. Their libraries, their worlds, their very histories dissolved into ambiguity, leaving only cosmic static. We search for radio waves, but find only echoes of their absence. Yet here's the twist. We are here to ponder this. Does that mean the experiment
has already failed?
That some primordial observer, a god, a cosmic parent, still watches, ensuring the library's shelves stay intact? Ancient myths murmur of such beings. The Egyptians spoke of Thoth, the scribe of the gods, whose pen maintained the universe. Buddhist texts describe the Alaya Vijnana, a storehouse consciousness that upholds reality when individual minds sleep. Are we too unwitting scribes? Walk deeper into the stacks. Notice the air grows colder, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Those ever-present observers fades. A book slips from a shelf, falling in slow motion. Without eyes to mark its descent, does it land? Or does it hover eternally in the act of falling, like Zeno's arrow frozen mid-flight? This is the ethical razor edge of the forbidden experiment. To test it risks more than answers, it risks erasing the question itself. Yet we cannot help but wonder. The library taunts us with its paradox. If a mind emerges within the universe, how could it exist before the universe to observe it into?
Being?
Like a painter, trapped in their own canvas, we are both the dream and the dreamer. The books on these shelves may hold the answer, but opening them changes their text. Observation alters. Curiosity creates. As we retreat from the experiment, relighting, the lamps inviting back the hum of machines, we confront a haunting possibility. The library needs us, not just to read its stories, but to write them. Every glance at the moon, every recorded heartbeat, every child's question about the stars. These are the pens that fill the pages, but linger a moment longer. In the gloom, a single book lies open. Its pages are blank. Is this the end of a story, or the beginning? The library does not answer. It only waits, patient as dust, for the next reader to wander by, and in wandering, become a co-author of all that is. Let us pause here at the shore of the infinite. The universe, we've learned, is not a static edifice, but a symphony, a fragile composition of attention and intention. Every observation, every thought, is a note struck in the dark, resonating through the void. But who is the composer, and what happens if the orchestra falls silent? Imagine a single piano key, press it, and a sound blooms. Press it again, and the note is subtly different. The humidity, the temperature, the wear of the hammer shaping its timbre. Now imagine a universe where each note requires a listener to exist. No ear, no sound, no mind, no melody. This is the Symphony of Maybe, a cosmic score where silence is not the absence of noise, but the absence of meaning. Philosopher Alan Watts once mused that reality is a gesture, an ephemeral dance with no purpose beyond itself. But what if the dance depends on our applause? Indigenous cultures have long understood this. The Kogi people of Colombia believe their rituals sustain the world, that without their prayers the mountains would crumble and the rivers run dry. Modern physics nods in eerie agreement. The Higgs field, which grants particles mass, requires interaction to manifest. No observers, no matter. No matter, no mountains. Yet here lies the dissonance. If reality is collaborative, who holds the baton? Are we soloists, each crafting our own melody, or mere instruments in a grander arrangement? The forbidden experiment whispers a third option. We are both, the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream, locked in a waltz of mutual creation. Consider the double-slit experiment once more. When unobserved, particles behave as waves, a chorus of possibilities. Observed, they become singular, a lone voice. Extend this to the human scale. A life unlived, a choice unmade, exists as a quantum fugue until consciousness collapses it into a single timeline. Your memories, your regrets, your joys, are they facts or merely the loudest?
Notes in a symphony of what-ifs?
This is where the experiment turns dangerous. If a mind can shape reality through observation, what happens when it turns inward? Mystics and meditatives have long sought emptiness, a state of pure awareness without attachment. But what if this emptiness is not enlightenment, but erasure? A mind that observes itself too deeply might unravel the threads of its own existence, like a violin bowing its own strings into silence. The lake before us mirrors this paradox. Gaze into it, and the stars double, a celestial dance above and below. But disturb the water, and the reflection fractures. Reality, too, is a hall of mirrors. Our observations are pebbles tossed into the cosmic pond, ripples intersecting, amplifying, cancelling. One pebble creates a moon. Another, a black hole. A third, a childhood memory. Together they weave the tapestry of what is. But what if we withdraw? What if all minds retreat into solitude, their ripples stilled? The symphony would falter, the stars would dim, not from lack of fuel, but from lack of wonder. The library's books would remain unread, the quantum mirror would shatter into dust, and the flame, our humble flame, would gutter not from lack of oxygen, but lack of belief. Yet the universe is patient. It hums in the spaces between our attention. The Buddhist concept of sunyata, emptiness, teaches that form is void and void is form. The lake's ripples subside. The stars return. The symphony continues even in stillness, because the potential for observation remains. A single photon traveling from a distant quasar for billions of years holds its wave function.
intact until it meets your retina.
You here now complete a chain of causality older than time. As we prepare to close this chapter, the flame reignites, but inverted, its light pooling upward like liquid gold. A reminder, reality is not fixed, but fluid. To observe is to bend it. To imagine is to risk it, and to ask what if is to hold the match that could burn it all or illuminate wonders unseen. We return now to where we began, but nothing is as it was. This flame, once a fragile dance of carbon and oxygen, has become a cipher for the cosmos. It asks again what is real, not in defiance but in reverence. For we've wandered through mirrors and libraries, through symphonies and stars, only to arrive here at the heart of the eternal maybe. Imagine this flame as the first spark of existence. Before time, before space, there was a void, but not emptiness, a void pregnant with potential, a canvas awaiting the brush of attention. Then a question, what if? And with it, the Big Bang, not an explosion, but a response, a universe unfurling, itself to meet the gaze of a future observer. You, me, every creature that ever turned its face to the sky and wondered. But what if the inverse is also true? What if the end of all things is not a fiery collapse or a frozen whisper, but a quiet withdrawal of attention? A day when every mind closes its eyes, every instrument powers down, and the cosmos, exhausted by millennia of interpretation, finally stops performing. Would it linger like a forgotten dream? Or would it dissolve, grateful for the rest? We cannot know. And perhaps that is the lesson. The forbidden experiment is not a puzzle to solve, but a mirror to gaze into, one that reflects our own paradox. We are creatures of stardust, animated by the same forces we seek to measure. To observe reality is to observe ourselves. To question it is to question the validity of our own minds. Yet here, in this final act, there is solace. The flame before you has burned for eons in this script, untouched by time. It does not age, it does not waver, because you are here now to witness it. Your attention is the wick, your curiosity the oxygen. This is the secret, the experiment. Tried to hide, we are not just observers, we are collaborators. Every moment of focus, every act of awe, every whispered why is a stitch in the tapestry of existence. The ancients knew this. They built temples to the stars, composed hymns to the wind, not out of ignorance, but intuition. They sensed the pact. The universe reveals itself to those who dare to look. A child pointing at the moon, an astronomer tracing a comet's tail, a lover memorizing the freckles on a cheek. All are priests in this silent religion. All are keepers of the flame. But what of the experiment? What if we had erased all observers? Would the void have swallowed the stars? The answer, perhaps, lies in the candle itself. Blow it out. Let the dark reclaim it. But wait. Its afterimage lingers in your mind, doesn't it? A phantom glow, stubborn as memory. This is the eternal maybe. Even in absence, presence persists. The universe is not so easily undone. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, consider this. Your dreams are laboratories. Your thoughts are catalysts. When you imagine a mountain, you summon it. When you recall a voice, you resurrect it. You are, in every moment, performing the forbidden experiment, not by erasing reality, but by reinventing it. The flame splits. Watch as its light fractures into countless embers, each a star, each a possibility. Some become galaxies, others neurons in a sleeping mind. One becomes the first spark in a primordial sea. Another, the last sigh of a dying sun. This is the true nature of the cosmos. An infinite regression of beginnings and ends, all hinging on a single, unanswerable question. And as the screen darkens, as the hum of the void fades, ask yourself, what will I choose to observe tomorrow?
A sunrise, a stranger's smile, the space between words? Know this, whatever you choose, you're not just a witness. You are the author, the composer, the flame. Rest now. The experiment is over, or has it just begun?